Welcome everyone to another skill issue guide, this time on an aircraft which I can guarantee 90% of you are using wrong, the F-15E. Let's just address the elephant in the room first. I'm sure nearly all of you at some point have seen either a YouTube short or an Instagram reel of people just space climbing, spamming AMRAAMs at the enemy team, and getting a load of kills. I can confidently say that after literally dozens of matches using that strategy, cherry-picked would be a charitable way to describe those cases. We've had advanced Fox 3s in the game for quite a while now, and by this point, pretty much everyone except very new players understands how to counter them, especially from extreme range. Because of that, if you really want to succeed with this aircraft, you're going to need to play a little bit smarter than just spamming AMRAAMs from 2 time zones away. Luckily, today I have for you not just one, but 2 different strategies I developed which consistently result in kill-to-death ratios of around 2.5 to 3 over the course of several matches. Before we get into that, though, let's talk a little bit about this aircraft, because there's kind of a lot going on here. First, let's address the most recent big change this aircraft got, which is the addition of C5 AMRAAMs in the last update. I want to make something very clear, these are not an upgrade over the B variant, at least not in War Thunder anyways, rather this is very much a side grade, with the biggest difference being the motor. You see, the C5s have greater overall range than the B, but they take much longer to actually get up to speed, sort of like the AIM-54 Phoenix, though not quite that extreme. This means that within 15 to 25 kilometers, depending on the altitude, the Bs are actually going to be more effective than the C5s. A few other minor differences which help the C5s out a bit at long range include the fact that it gets a 15% larger warhead, which can be helpful for dealing with targets hugging the ground, and it also has a slightly lower drag coefficient than the B. Regarding the airframe itself, this is currently the top of the pack in terms of just raw thrust. At medium altitude, you can easily sustain Mach 1.5 even while maneuvering, and with this insane rate of climb, you'll have no problem getting yourself into space right off the bat. Aside from the advantages in positioning this also gives you the ability to bleed out incoming missiles of their energy without even needing to notch them. Let me bust out our old friend MS Paint to show you how. What you have to remember is that when you fire a missile at someone, it's not aiming at their current location, but rather it's going to lead the target and try and hit them wherever it predicts their position will be. The faster you are, the further in front of you that estimated point of impact will be. So if you're hauling ass up in the stratosphere and turn around without dropping much speed, that missile is going to bleed so much energy turning that you can basically just run away from it, assuming somebody didn't just barrel stuff you with a mica, of course. The F-15E does pay a price for that energy retention, though. Unlike aircraft such as the Eurofighter or the Rafale, it doesn't have the ability to just turn on a dime and rapidly decelerate itself to dodge a missile. Instead, you will actually compress quite seriously at high speed, so if you need to slow down fast, you're going to need to use that air brake. Another rather unfortunate trait of this aircraft is that it can only hold a total of 8 air-to-air missiles, whereas you have F-18s and various flanker variants flying around with 10, 12, or even 14. Granted, those vehicles absolutely pale in comparison to the F-15E in terms of flight performance, but as we all know, ARB sometimes devolves into just a missile spam fest, so this restriction on your armament quantity is going to cap the upper limit of how many kills you can get per match. By far the biggest thing holding back the F-15E, though, is its radar. Its radar is not unusable or anything, however, it has a rather restricted field of vision, and even within the area it can see, it has trouble acquiring targets quickly, and when you have a bunch of missiles and chaff flying around, it has a very difficult time getting a solid TWS lock on people. Putting a relatively underpowered radar on such a ridiculously powerful airframe is kinda like using a sniper rifle with iron sights, in that it really prevents you from using the insane energy of this vehicle to its full potential. This leaves you with really only 2 options if you want to consistently do well and overcome this drawback. Either you need to fire on the enemy while the skies are still relatively clear, or you simply have to not rely on your radar at all. Now, quick confession, the strategy I had first attempted, which I assumed would work well, actually failed miserably. The idea was to get myself into as high an energy state as possible right off the bat, and then fire on the enemy space climbers from the edge of the C5's effective range. This is more or less the strategy I've used with the Fokker 90s, which I've had quite a lot of success with. The problem is that these C5s still don't have the same kind of insane effective range as these types of heavy, long-range Fox 3s found on the Tomcats. I mean, the MR and AMRAAM does stand for medium range after all. Because of this, kills were wildly inconsistent. I did get a few good games here and there, but about half the time I would just get 1, maybe 2 kills after firing a full load of AMRAAMs, RTB, and then not really contribute to my team very much at all. However, because this airframe's primary advantage is speed, it's kind of a waste of potential to not use it to pick people off earlier in the match. For that reason, I came up with this first strategy I'll share, which I would describe as the offensive route. Rather than attacking the enemy space climbers, instead I found I had far better luck attacking the low-flying enemies circling clockwise around the bases. How exactly you reach these targets is going to depend on the map, but you want to circle in from a bit outside of the bases at an altitude of around 1500 to 5500 meters. This altitude is high enough that you'll be able to reach a very high speed while also not producing a contrail, which might as well be a giant "please AMRAM me" sign pointed directly towards the enemy team. Firing on this group of enemies is a good bet, since most of the time when you do get fired on while in this position, it will be as a result of some noob spamming missiles from across the map, so many people won't take this launch warning very seriously. This also means you have a better chance of taking out some of the enemy team's more experienced players, which is going to significantly stack the deck in your team's favor. I find that with the C5 AMRAMs, 32 kilometers is about the maximum effective range for firing on these types of targets, but waiting until 25 kilometers will raise the chances of a kill substantially. You may notice I'm running a bit of an odd loadout here with 4 C5s, 2 Bs, and 2 Sidewinders. You can run whatever you like, but I'm just doing this as a way to sort of restrain myself from just spamming all my missiles at once, and instead I fire 4 of the C5s at the strongest radar tracks, but I may fire all 6 AMRAMs if there are some particularly good targets. Based on my experience, this initial volley will tend to get you at least 1 kill at least 2/3 of the time. Once you fire off these missiles, it's very important that you circle into the center of the map towards your team. If you fly off to the right, you're going to get cut off from support and eventually just chased down and killed. After circling in towards the center of the map, I find that the enemy space climbers, who are now flying defensively, often make good targets for your remaining AMRAMs, since they'll have bled out a good amount of their energy by this point, and will probably be caught off guard by being fired upon from an area of the map that they probably expect to be mostly full of teammates. Your Sidewinders are also a very reliable source of kills for firing down on people on the deck, since your high speed will significantly extend their range, and since they obviously won't be setting off any launch warnings. And remember that if you're firing on a target who's pre-flaring, lock them up with your radar before firing so that the Seeker Shutoff IRCCM can kick in and prevent the missile from getting spoofed. My second strategy may be a bit better for more advanced players, since the conditions you encounter will be a lot more inconsistent. This strategy is basically boom and zooming, except that the zoom part revolves more around your energy state rather than your altitude. For your opening move, you want to do essentially the reverse of the offensive strategy, climbing up to 5,000 to 5,500 meters around the left side of the map, get very fast, and then first and foremost, make sure nobody tries to pull off anything similar to what I just did in the last strategy I talked about. Once you can secure your team's flank, you can begin basically playing like an airborne sniper, staying fast and high and sort of zooming in from the edges of the map into the center, picking off enemies who are trying to harass your team. Usually I like to attack the remaining space climbers first, since again, attacks coming off from the side and slightly below them are going to catch them more off guard than someone attacking at high altitude from the direction of your team's spawn. If you can clear out the stratosphere of any remaining resistance, that's when you can start attacking lower flying targets engaging your teammates, ideally by using your helmet-mounted sight rather than by using your TWS. This is due to the reliability issues I mentioned earlier with this radar's TWS mode, which I'm sure you've noticed in the background footage by now. I like to carry a loadout better optimized for close-in engagements with this strategy, consisting of 6 AIM-120Bs and 2 Sidewinders, using my overwhelming energy advantage to blindside people with these missiles at closer ranges, where they simply cannot be dodged kinematically. As you're doing this though, just remember, speed is life in this aircraft, and if you miss a shot, don't slow down and full commit, either move on and search for another target, or keep up your energy and come back around for another pass. If you do end up in a dogfight, things are very much not hopeless. The F-15E is definitely not the best dogfighting airframe at this tier, but if you can air brake and force the enemy to overshoot, I don't find it difficult at all to get onto the tails of even more maneuverable aircraft. You can find a full tutorial on pulling off reversals in the description in my ARB playlist, by the way. With either of these strategies, you're generally not going to get more than 4 or 5 kills per match at most, but over the course of several matches, I find my overall KD remains quite high, and you can definitely bet this will deliver a much better win rate than just cross-map spamming AMRAMs. Hopefully these strategies will allow you guys to bump up your stats in this vehicle a good bit. Before we wrap up, I'm going to once again show my channel membership program for those of you who want to have input on future video topics, and if you want to see guides like this for other aircraft, check out the playlist, link in the description. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.